Welcome back. This channel exists because of your support. Subscribe, hit like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Now let's get into the story. My wife turned our anniversary celebration into a divorce announcement in front of 40 people. They actually cheered when she declared herself free again. What she didn't expect was that I wouldn't beg her to reconsider. It started on a Thursday evening when Jennifer came home with this electric energy that immediately put me on edge. I was in the kitchen going through some project timelines on my laptop when she burst through the door of our Back Bay condo, practically vibrating with excitement. "We need to go somewhere special this Saturday," she announced, dropping her bag on the counter. "I've organized something really important for us." I looked up from my screen. "What kind of something?" "It's a surprise. Just trust me on this one." She was bouncing on her feet like a kid on Christmas morning. "We need to be at the Fairmont Copley Plaza at 7 sharp. It's for our anniversary." Something about her tone made my stomach tighten. Too rehearsed. Like she'd been practicing this conversation in her car on the way home. The Fairmont. I closed my laptop. That's pretty fancy for a Thursday announcement. It's going to be perfect. I've invited a few friends to celebrate with us. She was already heading toward the bedroom, talking over her shoulder. "Wear your gray suit. The nice one." I sat there for a moment, staring at the spot where she'd been standing. 7 years of marriage had taught me to read her moods, and this one felt off. But I nodded to the empty kitchen and went back to my work, trying to ignore the uneasy feeling settling in my chest. Saturday afternoon, Jennifer spent 4 hours getting ready. She had a hair appointment at noon, came back and did her makeup twice, tried on 3 different dresses before settling on an emerald green cocktail dress that she only wore to major events. I watched her check herself in the mirror for the 10th time, adjusting her hair, practicing her smile. "You look great," I told her as I knotted my tie. "Thanks." She barely glanced at me, too focused on her reflection. "You clean up well yourself." The drive to Copley Plaza was strange. She kept checking her phone, texting someone, putting it away, then picking it up again 30 seconds later. Every few minutes, she'd look at me with this odd expression, like she was studying my face for something. "So what exactly are we walking into here?" I asked as we pulled into the parking garage. "You'll see. Just follow my lead, okay?" "Okay." We walked through the hotel lobby, and I could hear voices and music coming from one of the private event rooms. Jennifer's hand was on my arm, but it felt more like she was steering me than being affectionate. When we walked into the room, I stopped dead. There had to be 40 people there. Her work friends, college friends, some faces I recognized from various parties over the years. Her sister Kelly was there with her husband. Everyone turned to look at us as we entered, and this expectant silence fell over the room. "Surprise," someone called out, but it felt hollow, like they weren't quite sure what they were celebrating. Jennifer stepped away from me and moved to the center of the room. That's when I saw the microphone in her hand, and suddenly I understood. This wasn't a surprise party for me. This was a performance, and I was the unwilling audience. "Thank you all for coming tonight," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the sound system. "I know some of you are wondering why I asked you here, so I'm going to cut right to the chase." The room got quieter. I could feel people's eyes shifting between her and me. Something cold settled in my chest. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately about marriage, about relationships, about what we're all really doing here. She paused like she was giving a TED Talk, and I've come to a conclusion. Marriage is an outdated institution designed to trap people in situations that no longer serve them. Here it comes, I thought. So tonight, I want to announce to all of you that I'm officially free again. I'm taking back my life. The room erupted. People actually started clapping and cheering like she'd just announced she was running for president. Her sister hooped from the back of the room. Some guy from her office yelled, "You go, girl." I stood there watching this circus unfold around me, and something shifted inside me. Not heartbreak, not anger, just this crystal clear moment of understanding. She had orchestrated this entire thing to humiliate me publicly. She wanted me to beg, to cry, to make a scene that would validate whatever narrative she'd been building in her head about our marriage. She turned to look at me with this expectant expression, like she was waiting for me to drop to my knees and plead with her to reconsider. The microphone was still in her hand, probably hoping I'd grab it and make some desperate speech about how much I loved her. Instead, I looked at her for exactly 3 seconds. Then I looked at the crowd of people who were still applauding my public humiliation. Then I did the one thing she clearly hadn't planned for. I turned around and walked out. No words, no drama, no begging. Just a simple about-face and a walk toward the exit that felt like the longest and shortest walk of my life. Behind me, the applause died out completely. I could hear her voice, suddenly uncertain, calling my name through the microphone. But I didn't turn around, didn't slow down, didn't give her the satisfaction of a reaction. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove home, leaving her to explain to 40 confused people why her grand finale had just walked away without a script. I got home around 8:30 that night and poured myself a bourbon. Not because I was devastated, but because I had some serious thinking to do, and good whiskey helps me think clearly. She didn't come home that night. Probably stayed at her sister Kelly's place, expecting me to call and apologize for not playing my assigned role in her little drama. My phone sat silent on the kitchen counter, and I was perfectly fine with that. Sunday morning, I started making changes. I sat at the kitchen table with a notepad and my phone, feeling more clear-headed than I had in months. First action was the bank accounts. It was Sunday, but our bank had full online access. I logged in and removed Jennifer as an authorized user from our joint checking and savings accounts. Then I transferred exactly half the balance to her separate account that she'd opened years ago. Fair, not spiteful. I changed all the passwords and security questions. The whole process took 20 minutes. Second, I called our insurance company. Left a detailed voicemail about removing Jennifer from my health plan, citing marital separation. Effective immediately. Third was the locksmith. Scheduled for Monday morning. All exterior doors, plus the garage code reset. Then came the hardest part. I started packing her belongings. Not angry, not throwing things around. Just systematic. Organized. I went through the closet, the drawers, the bathroom. Everything that was hers went into boxes. I labeled each one clearly and loaded them into my car. By noon, I'd rented a storage unit at Boston Self-Storage on Albany Street. Unit 247. I moved all her boxes there, kept the receipt, made a note of the access code. At 2:30, I sent her a text. Your belongings are in storage unit number 247 at Boston Self-Storage on Albany Street. Access code 4729. She called 3 minutes later. I let it ring 4 times before answering. What's up? What's up? Her voice was sharp, incredulous. Are you serious right now? You just locked me out of our accounts. You announced you were free. Free people have their own accounts. That's not what I meant. What did you mean? Because I'm officially free again seemed pretty clear to me. We need to talk. I'm coming home. No, you're not. Excuse me. You announced you were single. Single people don't live in my house. Our house. Check the deed. It's my condo. Always has been. You just lived here because we were married. But according to your little speech last night, we're not married anymore. I could hear her breathing getting faster on the other end. You can't just lock me out. This is my home too. Was. Past tense. You made your choice in front of 40 witnesses. I'm just respecting that choice. You're being ridiculous. Am I? Because I'm pretty sure ridiculous was announcing our divorce at a surprise party without actually filing for divorce. I'm just being practical. She hung up on me. I finished my coffee and went back to organizing her things, making sure I hadn't missed anything. An hour later, she was pounding on the front door. I could see her through the window, still wearing that green dress from last night, looking significantly less put together than she had for her big announcement. I opened the door but stayed in the doorway, not inviting her in. What is wrong with you? She demanded. Nothing at all. I feel fantastic, actually. Let me in. We need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. You were very clear last night. That's not what I meant. Really? Because marriage is an outdated institution, and I'm officially free again seemed pretty clear. Was there some hidden meaning I missed? Her face was getting red now. I was just making a point. What point exactly? That you enjoy humiliating me publicly? That our marriage means so little to you that you'd turn ending it into entertainment for your friends? Help me understand the point here. I wanted you to fight for us. I wanted you to show some emotion. I actually laughed at that. So your master plan was to announce our divorce publicly, hope I'd make a scene begging you to reconsider, and then what? You'd graciously take me back in front of everyone? That was your idea of romance. She opened her mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. I just needed to know you still cared. I did care. Past tense again. But here's the thing about respect. Once you lose it, you don't get it back by explaining why you threw it away. So that's it. You're just giving up on 7 years of marriage. I'm not giving up on anything. You already gave up last night. I'm just catching up. She tried to push past me into the house, but I didn't move from the doorway. Your stuff is in the storage unit, like I said. I'll leave it unlocked so you can get it whenever you want. But you don't live here anymore. You can't be serious. Deadly serious. You wanted to be single. Congratulations. Enjoy your freedom. I closed the door and locked it. She pounded on it for about 10 more minutes, yelling through the wood about how unreasonable I was being, how we needed to talk like adults, how I was overreacting. I went upstairs and took a long, hot shower. By the time I got out, the pounding had stopped and her car was gone. That evening, she started texting me. Long paragraphs about how she'd made a mistake, how she just wanted me to show I cared, how we could work through this if I just let her come home and explain. I read each message and deleted it without responding. If she wanted to be single so badly that she'd announce it publicly, then she could experience what single actually felt like. My phone rang again around 10. I answered on the first ring this time. What? Please, just talk to me. 5 minutes. Let me explain. You had 7 years to explain how you felt. You chose to do it with a microphone in front of 40 people instead of having a conversation with your husband. That tells me everything I need to know about how much my feelings mattered to you. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been respecting me enough to discuss your issues privately. Fair would have been not turning our marriage into a comedy show for your friends. But you didn't want fair. You wanted dramatic. Well, here's your drama. I hung up and turned off my phone. The house was quiet that night. Peaceful even. For the first time in months, I slept through the night without waking up wondering what I'd done wrong or how I could fix whatever was broken between us. Monday morning brought the consequences she hadn't thought through. The locksmith arrived at 8, and I stayed long enough to let him in and provide instructions before heading to work. By the time I got to my office in downtown Crossing, I had 3 text messages from mutual friends who'd been at the party. Alex Reed. Dude, that was harsh what she did to you Saturday. Man, I felt uncomfortable watching that whole thing. Brian Cooper. Hey, just wanted you to know not everyone was cool with how she handled that. Another from someone I barely knew. That took guts to just walk out. Respect. Apparently, after the initial shock wore off and people had time to think about what they'd witnessed, the mood had shifted. What seemed like empowering female independence on Saturday night looked a lot more like public cruelty in the harsh light of Monday morning. Tuesday, Jennifer showed up at the condo during the day. I was at work, but my neighbor texted me that someone was pounding on my door for 20 minutes. When I got home that evening, there was a note stuck to the door, hastily written on notebook paper. I threw it away without reading it. Wednesday morning, I stopped at Thinking Cup on Tremont Street, my usual coffee spot before work. Alex Reed was there, looking uncomfortable when he saw me. Hey man, he said, shifting his weight from foot to foot. Morning. Look, I need to say something. What happened Saturday, that didn't sit right with most of us. That was brutal to watch. Appreciate you saying that. He hesitated, then stepped closer. Jennifer's been texting our whole friend group, trying to get us to convince you to talk to her. But honestly, most of us are pretty disgusted by the whole thing. Nobody wants to get involved. That explained why her calls had gotten less frequent. She kept telling everyone you were emotionally unavailable, Alex continued. Made it sound like you were the problem, like she was trapped. But when you just calmly walked out without making a scene, I don't know, it made us all realize maybe she was the one being dramatic. I thanked him and got my coffee. On the walk to my office, I thought about how quickly the narrative was changing. The people who'd applauded her announcement were now questioning what they'd actually witnessed. Thursday evening, I went to Boston Sports Club for my regular workout. I was halfway through my routine when I noticed Jennifer on the treadmill across the room. She'd never worked out a day in our entire marriage, but there she was in brand new athletic wear, positioned so she could stare directly at me. I finished my sets, headed to the locker room, and found her waiting outside the men's locker room door when I came out. Can we please talk? She said. A staff member noticed us. Is everything okay here? She's my ex-wife, I said. We're separated. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave him alone, the staff member said. Jennifer's face went red. She looked at me, then at the staff member, then back at me. Without a word, she stormed out. Friday brought a different approach. I was at lunch with Brian Cooper at Atlantic Fish Company when his phone buzzed. It's Jennifer's sister, he said, looking at the screen. Kelly wants me to meet her for coffee to discuss you and Jennifer. What did you say? I told her you have good reasons for what you're doing, and I'm not getting involved. He put his phone down. Man, she's really unraveling. Saturday afternoon, I was home reading when there was a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Christine Webb, Jennifer's best friend since college. I opened the door. Christine looked genuinely upset. I need to apologize to you, she said before I could even say hello. For what? For not speaking up Saturday night. For letting her do that to you. For applauding when I should have walked out. She shook her head. I've been listening to her complain about your marriage for months, and I thought maybe she had a point. But now I realize she was painting a picture that wasn't real. What did you see Saturday night? A woman humiliating a man who clearly loved her. A woman so desperate for attention and control that she'd destroy her marriage publicly just to prove a point. She looked genuinely ashamed. And I helped her do it. I helped her book the venue, coordinate with people. I thought it was going to be some kind of vow renewal or reconciliation thing. She didn't tell me what she was actually planning until Friday night, and by then everyone was already invited. She made her choice. You just happened to be there when she made it. She's falling apart, you know? None of us want to be around her anymore. She keeps calling, texting, showing up at our houses, trying to get us to help her fix this. Christine met my eyes. But there's nothing to fix. She broke something that can't be repaired. After she left, I sat on my back deck with a beer and thought about how quickly everything had changed. A week ago, I was married to a woman who thought so little of me that she'd make our relationship problems into public entertainment. Now I was free from that toxicity, and even her closest friends were admitting she'd been wrong. Week 2 brought escalation. Monday morning, Jennifer was waiting by my car in the parking garage at work. I walked past her and got in without acknowledgement. She knocked on the window, talking through the glass about counseling and second chances. I started the engine and drove away while she was still talking. Tuesday, she appeared at the Whole Foods on River Street while I was shopping. She followed me down the cereal aisle, making her case to my back about how we could fix this if I just gave her a chance. I finished my shopping and left her standing between the Cheerios and the cornflakes. Wednesday brought flying monkeys. Jennifer's mother, Diane Williams, called my cell. Michael, this is affecting everyone. Can't you two work this out? Your daughter announced our divorce publicly, Mrs. Williams. I'm just following through. She made a mistake. She's always been dramatic. Dramatic is throwing a tantrum. What she did was calculated humiliation. There's a difference. But you've been together 7 years. She chose her audience over her husband. That's not a marriage worth saving. I think you're being unreasonable. Then we'll have to disagree on that. I hung up before she could guilt-trip me further. Thursday, I was back at the gym when I noticed Jennifer using the elliptical machine, still in those brand-new workout clothes, still staring at me. When I went to the locker room, she actually followed me to the door and stood there waiting for me to come out. The gym staff had to ask her to leave the building. Friday was the peak of her desperation. Flowers arrived at my office with a card that said, "I'm sorry," in handwriting that looked like a child's attempt at cursive. Then, during my 2 o'clock meeting with a client, a singing telegram showed up. An actual woman in a ridiculous costume singing some song about forgiveness while my client sat there in confused silence. I thanked the singer, tipped her $20, and continued the meeting like nothing had happened. My client was impressed by how I handled it. He even mentioned it later, said it showed good character under pressure. That weekend, Jennifer started posting on social media. I didn't see it directly since I'd blocked her accounts the day after her announcement, but friends kept texting me about it. Cryptic quotes about depression and loneliness. Old photos of us together with captions about better times and fighting for love. Vague posts about learning who really cares. The comments section wasn't going her way, apparently. People were asking why she'd made the announcement public in the first place. Some were defending me. By Sunday evening, she deleted everything. Sunday night, she tried the nuclear option. She called pretending to be having some kind of emergency, crying hysterically about being in trouble and needing help. When I didn't immediately rush over, her sister Kelly called with the same story. I drove to Kelly's place, but not because I was worried about Jennifer. I went because I wanted to see exactly how low she was willing to go. Jennifer answered the door perfectly fine. No emergency in sight. Just red eyes from crying and desperation written all over her face. You came, she said, like this proved something. Your sister said you were in trouble. I can see you're not. I'm leaving. Wait, please. I just wanted to talk to you face to face without interruptions. So you lied about an emergency. That's your idea of mature communication? I was desperate. You won't take my calls. You won't see me. You won't even acknowledge that I exist. You announced you were single. Single people don't get to demand attention from their ex-husbands. I made a mistake. You made a choice. You planned it, organized it, executed it perfectly. The only mistake was assuming I'd play along with your drama. She grabbed my arm as I turned to leave. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I can't focus on anything. I miss you so much. It's killing me. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back at her face. That's what consequences feel like. You'll get used to it. How can you be so cold? You threw away 7 years for applause from people who barely know us. You chose your audience over your husband. Now you get to live with that choice. I pulled free from her grip and walked back to my car. She followed me, still talking, still pleading, still trying to negotiate her way out of the hole she'd dug for herself. As I drove away, I could see her in my rearview mirror, standing alone in her sister's driveway, finally understanding that some bridges can't be rebuilt once you've burned them in front of 40 witnesses. Week 3 brought more of the same. Monday, Kelly called my office claiming Jennifer was in crisis. I asked if she needed 911. Kelly said no, but Jennifer was really struggling. I told her Jennifer should call a therapist and hung up. Wednesday, a 6-page handwritten letter showed up at my office. Apologies, promises, explanations about how she just wanted me to fight for us. I read the first page and threw it away. When Brian asked if I'd read it all, I said I got the summary. Friday night, I was out with work friends at the Paramount on Beacon Hill. We were watching the game when Jennifer walked in with her friends. It was obvious she knew I'd be there. Alex had posted our location on Instagram. She approached our table. Can we please just talk? We're watching the game. Please leave. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I looked at my coworkers. This is the woman who announced our divorce at a surprise party 3 weeks ago. One of them whistled. Whoa, that was you. That story's been all over town. Jennifer's face went red. Don't do this here. Do what? Tell the truth? I thought you were all about public announcements. She stormed out. My coworkers looked at me with a mix of sympathy and respect. That took guts, one of them said. Walking out like that just seemed like the right thing to do. Tuesday of week 4, my brother Thomas called from Baltimore. Our mother had told him about the situation. Just wanted to check in, he said. See how you're holding up. I'm fine. Actually better than fine. Mom said Jennifer's been calling everyone, trying to get people to pressure you. She has. It's not working. Good. You know, you can't respect someone back into loving you. She destroyed that herself when she turned your marriage into a performance. We talked for a while longer. It felt good to have someone outside the situation validate my response. Thomas had always been straightforward, and his support meant something. Thursday evening of week 4, everything came to a head. I was home alone, having made myself a perfect steak, opened a bottle of Jordan Cabernet I'd been saving. The playoff game was on, and I was feeling more peaceful than I had in months. Around 9, it started raining. Not just regular rain, but one of those heavy New England downpours that makes you grateful to be inside with a roof over your head and a good meal. At 9:30, I heard soft knocking at the front door of my building. I live in a secure building in Back Bay, so I went to the intercom. Through the camera, I could see Jennifer standing outside on the street-level steps. She was soaking wet. No umbrella, no jacket, just jeans and a t-shirt plastered to her body. Her hair was matted down, mascara running down her cheeks. She looked like she'd been standing out there for a while. She knocked again, more desperately this time. I could hear her voice through the intercom speaker. Please, please just let me in. We need to talk. I stood there watching her through the security camera, taking in the full picture. This was the same woman who'd stood up in front of 40 people 4 weeks ago, microphone in hand, announcing that marriage was outdated and she was free again. The same woman who'd planned that humiliation for days, invited an audience to witness it, and expected me to beg for her forgiveness. Now she was begging in the rain. The irony was perfect, but I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, no urge to gloat. Just emptiness where my feelings for her used to be. I know you're there, she said through the speaker. I can see the light in your window. Please, just 5 minutes. 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. 5 minutes. That's all she wanted now. 5 minutes to try to undo 4 weeks of consequences, to erase 7 seconds of public humiliation. I moved away from the intercom and went back to my living room, picked up my wine glass, and took a sip. The steak was getting cold, but it still tasted perfect. The knocking continued for another 10 minutes, sometimes soft and pleading, sometimes desperate and demanding. I could hear her voice through the walls and the rain, muffled but persistent. I didn't try to make out the words. Eventually, the knocking stopped. I looked at the security monitor again. She was sitting on the front steps of the building, hunched over with her head in her hands. Rain was still pouring down on her. Part of me wondered how long she'd sit there. Part of me wondered if this was another performance, designed to make me feel guilty enough to let her in. But mostly, I just felt tired. Tired of the drama. Tired of the manipulation. Tired of being treated like a supporting character in someone else's story about empowerment and independence. She'd made her choice that night at the Fairmont. She'd chosen her audience over her husband. Public humiliation over private conversation. Applause over respect. Every consequence that followed was just the natural result of that choice. I finished my wine and went upstairs to bed. From the bedroom window, I could see she was still there, still sitting in the rain like some kind of tragic movie heroine waiting for her redemption scene. But this wasn't a movie. This was real life, where actions have consequences and some mistakes can't be fixed with tears in the rain. I closed the curtains and went to sleep. When I woke up the next morning, she was gone. There was a soggy piece of paper stuck to the building's front door, probably a letter she'd written while sitting there. I threw it away without reading it. Week 5 brought her final attempts. Over the weekend, Jennifer left 8 voicemails. I deleted them all without listening. Monday morning, I changed my number and only gave it to important contacts. Tuesday, Kelly showed up at my office again. This time she got past the receptionist. I met her in the lobby, refused to go somewhere private. She's falling apart, Kelly said. She's not eating, not sleeping. That's unfortunate. How can you be so cold? She announced our divorce to 40 people without discussing it with me. She made our marriage into entertainment. Those are her consequences. She made a mistake. She made a choice. She planned it for days, rented a venue, invited people. That's not a mistake. That's a decision. She loves you. She loves having control. There's a difference. So that's it. 7 years mean nothing? They meant everything. Until she decided they meant less than applause from people who barely know us. Kelly left crying. I went back upstairs and closed a major deal that afternoon. My boss complimented me on staying focused despite personal issues. Professional life was thriving while my personal life sorted itself out. Thursday, I met Alex Reed and his wife for dinner. Over drinks, Alex told me Jennifer had left Boston. She left right after Kelly tried to get you to talk to her on Tuesday, he said. Went to stay with a college friend in Atlanta. Trying to start fresh, I guess. Probably for the best. Yeah, she lost most of the friend group over this. Even Kelly stopped talking to her for a while. Said she felt used by all the manipulation attempts. How's her mom taking it, Diane? I heard she told Jennifer she was disappointed in how she handled everything. That woman has always cared a lot about appearances, and this whole thing embarrassed her. I nodded, taking it all in. Jennifer was losing everything she'd thought she'd gained by her grand gesture. The social validation, the support system, the narrative control. All of it crumbling because people eventually see through performances. Friday, I went for a long walk through Boston Common. It was a beautiful late autumn day, leaves turning orange and red, crisp air that felt clean in my lungs. I noticed how peaceful I felt. Realized I hadn't felt this content in months. The relationship had been deteriorating longer than I'd admitted to myself. Her announcement had just clarified what was already broken. Week 6 brought closure without contact. Monday morning, an envelope from an attorney arrived at my office. Jennifer was filing for divorce. The papers were standard, no fault, equal division of the minimal marital assets we'd accumulated. We had a prenup that protected my condo, which I'd inherited from my grandparents. No alimony requested. I signed everything immediately and sent it back the same day. Friday evening, I stood at my living room window looking out at the Boston skyline. The lights of the city sparkled against the darkening sky. I thought about the past 6 weeks. About the surprise announcement, the aftermath, the manipulation attempts, the rain-soaked plea on my doorstep. I felt no anger, no regret, just clarity about what respect means in a relationship. Love without respect is meaningless. Public humiliation destroys trust permanently. Some bridges, once burned publicly, can't be rebuilt with private apologies. Walking away with dignity beats staying for drama every single time. I thought about Jennifer, somewhere in Atlanta, trying to rebuild a life she'd demolished for 40 people's applause. I hoped she learned something from all this. But mostly, I hoped she'd leave me alone. My phone buzzed. A text from Brian. Drinks tomorrow? Few of us are getting together. Yeah, sounds good. I texted back. Life was moving forward. That's all it needed to do. 3 months later, it was early February. The divorce had been finalized in January. I'd been promoted to director at my firm. I was dating casually, nothing serious, no rush. I'd reconnected with friends who'd drifted away during my marriage. Joined a new gym. Took a weekend ski trip to Vermont with Brian and some other guys. Life was stable. Content. Forward-focused. I heard through mutual friends that Jennifer was still in Atlanta, working at a smaller marketing agency. She'd lost touch with the Boston friend group entirely. Her social media was nearly inactive. Someone who'd seen her said she was different now, quieter. Apparently, the story of her announcement had followed her. Someone in Atlanta knew someone who'd been at the party. Reputations are strange things. They travel farther than you think. One morning, I stopped at Thinking Cup for coffee before work. I was waiting for my order when I heard someone say my name. Michael. I turned. Diane Williams, Jennifer's mother, stood there looking uncomfortable. Mrs. Williams. How are you? I'm well. I didn't expect to see you. She hesitated. I wanted to apologize to you. That's not necessary. It is. I raised Jennifer to be better than what she did. The way she treated you, the way she humiliated you publicly, I'm ashamed of her behavior. I appreciate that. She's in Atlanta now? I don't know if you heard. I did. She's different now? Realizes what she lost. But I told her that's not something she can fix. No, it's not. You handled everything with remarkable grace, Michael. I hope you're doing well. I am. Very well, actually. Good. You deserve that. We parted ways cordially. I walked to my office thinking about the encounter. Felt nothing about Jennifer's regret. No desire to gloat or reconnect. Just a closed chapter in a book I'd already put back on the shelf. That evening, I cooked dinner in my quiet condo. Music playing. Wine breathing on the counter. I thought about how people sometimes ask if I regret my response to Jennifer's announcement. If I think I should have given her another chance, shown mercy, been the bigger person. My answer is always the same. Absolutely not. Respect isn't something you can lose and then get back by apologizing. Trust isn't something you can break publicly and repair privately. And dignity isn't something you can sacrifice for applause and then reclaim with tears. She wanted to be free so badly that she made it a public celebration. I just gave her exactly what she asked for. No regrets. No second-guessing. Some decisions, once made, don't need to be revisited. 5 months have passed since that night at the Fairmont. I'm up for VP at my firm. I'm dating someone who understands that respect is the foundation of any relationship worth having. And Jennifer is somewhere in Atlanta, living with the consequences of turning our marriage into entertainment. Sometimes the best response to someone trying to humiliate you is to simply refuse to be humiliated. Let them stand there with their microphone and their audience, talking to empty air while you walk away with your dignity intact. The people worth keeping in your life will respect you for it. The ones who don't weren't worth keeping anyway. I took a sip of wine and looked out at the city lights. Life was good, peaceful, exactly what I'd needed all along. And somewhere out there, 40 people who'd applauded a woman's cruelty had learned a valuable lesson about the difference between empowerment and humiliation, about the consequences of turning someone's pain into your entertainment. I hope they remembered it the next time someone asked them to be an audience for someone else's drama. As for me, I was done being anyone's supporting character. My life was my own again, free in the way that actually matters. Not free from commitment, but free from disrespect. And that, I've learned, makes all the difference. Dear listeners, that's our ending. If it resonated, subscribe to support the channel. See you next time.